We now have on the phone Senator Edgardo Angara, who's the main proponent of the Cybercrime Prevention Law. Good morning, Senator Angara.
Good morning, Jing. Good morning sa mga nakikinig, and good morning to those...
Senator, your reaction to the TRO first.
Well, that's part and parcel of lawmaking in this country. Yung paglabas ng isang proposal or bill, once it's passed by Congress, and there are some citizens who may find some provision objectionable, the final step nga is to go to court and question that provision, and the court will determine whether that provision is valid or not. So this is part and parcel of policy making in our country. So we welcome it. We welcome it.
In its final form, did the final form of the Cybercrime Law carry the spirit that you were thinking of, which pushed you to author this law?
Yes, definitely, Jing. And let me just put everything in context. This measure is the subject of 9 separate bills filed by 9 senators in the Senate,
okay,
and by several, maybe more than 50 congressmen in the House. Mm-hmm. So in the Senate, I'm one of them. I'm one of the 9 who filed, but the the first bill was filed by the Senate President Paul Sanrile. So, as chairman of the Committee on Science and Technology, all these measures were referred to my committee, and I tried to consolidate and harmonize and put all the 9 separate bills into one committee report. That's my role there, and I sponsored it on the floor. So now, did the bill captured the essence and spirit and trust of a Cybercrime Prevention Act? Definitely. Mm-hmm. What this bill is trying to do is prevent and suppress those dangerous and destructive actions of the user. Why? Because if you don't prevent the destructive and socially undesirable behavior of those who abuse the internet, then those who use the internet for legitimate purposes, for business, for e-governance, for e-learning, would have their corresponding rights eroded. Look at what is happening. You know, some of those cyber criminals have hacked all government websites. So is that the appropriate use of the internet? So what this cyber law is preventing is the destruction of the very medium that is beneficial to a very large sector of our population.
Don't you think?
But
don't you think the effort to prevent crime oversteps and intrudes into the freedom of expression?
That's correct. The freedom of expression was never interpreted to cover malicious and libelous statement. Whether you say it in print, whether you write it in print, you say it in broadcast, you show it on cinema or film, and logically should also apply when you say it online. So the protection of the freedom of free expression has never been extended and has never covered your freedom to libel and malign people and their reputation.
When the oral arguments begin in January 15, what stand will the proponents of the bill take after hearing all the opposition and 15 or so petitions filed with the Supreme Court against the cyber law?
Because of the division of labor in our government, in a three-branch government, we have done our part in the Congress. Mm-hmm. This is now LADS, because this is now enforcement stage and implementation stage. The obligation now to defend the measure before the Supreme Court rests with the executive, primarily with the Solicitor General. But we will be more than happy and more than glad to provide all the legislative materials, all the researches that went into this, into the making of this law, in order to make the case for the cybercrime law even stronger. I think the cybercrime law covers one of the most important technologies of our time, communication and information technology. And that is the domain that we're trying to protect. That's the area that we're trying to protect to ensure that those who are honestly using it for legitimate purposes will be able to do so confidently and securely. And what, as in any civilized society, what we don't want to do are the anarchists and those just minded to destroy other people's
Senator,
rights.
the process allows for amendments and repealing the law. Is there time for that? Is there going to be any effort on the part of the legislature?
There's still time for that, Jing. And in fact, several senators and even congressmen have made proposals in one way or another. And I personally will submit a set of proposals that will respond to some of the provisions that many who honestly disagree with the law think ought to be clarified or amended. For instance, the penalty for libel through the process of exchange of opinion in the backcam, on the floor, debate on the floor, we made the penalty for libel through cybercrime or through online 1 degree higher in penalty. I thought we must make the penalty uniform for all libel, whether committed online, print, broadcast, or cinema. So just for uniformity of application and equality of application of justice, I'm proposing that. The second area that is honestly really debated is the so-called takedown clause. This one was recommended by the Information Communication Office of the DOST on the ground that a compromised website which has been altered, whose content may have been falsified, should no longer be accessible to the public. And on that assumption, the bicameral committee accepted the rationale for putting this takedown provision. But on second thought, on my part, I thought it's quite a sweeping authority because it can also be misconstrued as clamping down or blocking a website which, in the opinion of the DOJ, may be violative of the law. I don't want him alone to make the judgment. I would like the court, as in search and seizure cases, to examine the probable cause for that kind of
So,
exercise.
Senator, with your proposed amendments on libel and the takedown provisions,
That's
you think
right.
the
And
law
then
is
the
going to
third
be
one
more
is,
palatable?
Yeah, and the third one
Okay,
being
go ahead.
is the argument of criminal law lawyers that we should not incorporate en masse a provision that says that any crime under the revised penal code committed through the use of ICT is also penalized under the law and therefore deserves a penalty 1 degree higher. I thought that's too broad and too generalized. That was, again, recommended by the law enforcement officials from the NBI, from the PNP, and from the DOJ. But I think that the validity and force of the law will not in any way be eroded or weakened if we take out that kind of provision. So those are the 3 items uppermost in my mind. Remember, Jing, there are 31 sections, provisions of that law.
Yes.
Only those items are being objected to. So, in perspective, this law is for the benefit and to protect the right of Internet users. We want to expand it, we want to protect it. And if you read this law in relation to the Data Privacy Act, which protects the confidentiality and security in online communication, this is this is a law that responds to modern needs, to modern communication.
Senator, what's the timing on this? Are you going to file when are you going to file the proposed amendments to the law?
I'm having the draft of my amendment circulated among the original proponents of the cyber law.
Do they feel the same way about the three areas?
I beg your
The three
pardon?
sections, do they feel the same way? Do they share the same sentiments about these three sections that have been
Well, more or
received the
less, I
brunt
think
of the protests?
they share my concern, and possibly I don't want to commit them prematurely ahead of their studying my proposal. But generally, I think they share my sentiment.
Okay, Senator, thank you for your time this morning.
Thanks, Jing. Thank you very much.
Senator Edgardo Angara.